Yeah, ho.
Fantasy Vision. Guess who's in your area? Characters: Terrence Prescott, Ramono Matero, Zoldu Basil, Rakama Extina, Shira, Vinny, Noyer, featuring Ariel, Blue, Bobby, and Bunny of Good Girl, Jenny, Jisoo, Lalisa, and Rose of Blackpink. Welcome to the world of pieces. Peace over here, peace over there, peace everywhere, but often nowhere at all. 400 years ago, many people were tired. Tired of the patriarchy, tired of the disdain, tired of the despair, tired of the hunger, tired of the unfairness, just tired to the max. That led to a rebellion that turned the tide of the world, as so many spellbinders said to hell with everyone not being on the same page, to get on the same page, to rid the world of the so-called royal blood, toxic masculinity, and keeping everyone against each other. When everyone chose each other, there were no limits. Combining magic, hexing, and sorcery spellbinding history together so they could have access to galaxy magic, a magic so high they could control the world. The omniscient power of so many people, handed down from generation to generation, allowed them to remold the world to the point that they changed the land masses of planet Earth to a completely different planet, where magic was so blatant. The skies around the continents were never the same, as orange, magenta, mint, and colors other than blue filled the skies during the day. With all that beauty came the peace that every good-natured person wanted. Let's feed everyone. Let's see everyone. Most importantly, let's hug everyone. As culture revering men as the status quo was cut off at the head, equality was simply felt as peace crusaders named a new world order, dissolving the world of treacherous weapons, executing every pedophile, executing every rapist, opening all borders, travel for free, commerce for the better, commerce for everyone, everything for everybody. The golden rule was finally true. After the war that pulled planet Venus and planet Mars onto the same rotation axes of planet Earth and somehow reformed the asteroid belt into a planet, made everyone feel like miracles were going to keep happening. Saying goodbye to perpetual symbols of pitting men against women wiped everyone's slates clean for a good 100 years. The New World Order was silent for a long time as everyone got along, until the day several factions started ruining the peace by doing what evil does. Corruption came back in many forms as the ugliest part of human nature reared its ugly head again. The will to intentionally hurt people started pitting nations, kingdoms, and queendoms against each other. The people came together again and again to stop these fights. Moving from noisy periods to silent periods was something they didn't want to become the norm. Realizing that the fight for peace may run deeper than they thought. To fix this, they did what they did to start it, using the magic of togetherness to overpower the toxicity of separation. In the present day, many people still believe in the magic of togetherness. There are two girl groups from two different continents, two different worlds, using their stardom to bring worlds together. Good Girl and Blackpink took it upon themselves to collaborate. The Black Beauties that solidified sisterhood with the Asian beauties that know how to liven up an area made headlines again and again, to the point they decided to do a full project together after the success of the collaboration. Calling the album Midnight Hymns, they had the magic of togetherness in the best way possible. Music that makes you want to dance with everyone. Putting together talent is never easy. To find the even grounds for everyone to express themselves, allow for the beacon of togetherness to flourish again. As the flowers opened to bless the atmosphere again, they announced they would start a world tour titled the Zoom Your Girls Tour. Their tour has landed them in Madviller City, one of the new metropolitan cities of New Brazil. Looking forward to one of the biggest and most famous venues, the Blood, Sweat, and Tears Arena. For one night, On a fateful Saturday, they were ready to make history again. There's a huge matte black stage. There's a few sliders on each side. Then there's a huge marquee at the back of the stage that's the same size as the stage. Various light fixtures all around the front to the sides that meet up with the first sliders. It's a monstrous stage for a monstrous occasion. Before the show starts, the cameras like to zoom in and out of the many fans that fill up the stands. When it's showtime, fans are begging to chant Good Girl and Blackpink just a moment before they hit the stage. As the roars fill the atmosphere, the huge marquee screen blinks several times as the speakers blast static across the entire arena. The Blood, Sweat, and Tears Arena is their biggest stage for the Zoom Your Girls tour so far, proven by all of the vibrations brought upon by the jumping fans and the earth-moving stereo system. Good Girl and Blackpink are brought out on palanquins, holding microphones that are the same colors as their hair, the same microphones they have been blessing the entire tour with. The introduction has Ariel, Jisoo, Blue, Rose, Bobby, Lalisa, Bunny, and Jenny being brought out in a crisscross form as they belt their names. After Jenny belts her name, Blackpink is definitely in the area as all of them say their many thank yous for the electric welcome of the entire arena. All of them jump down from their palanquins as the many dancers accompany Blackpink in the background with Good Girl jumping off the concert with Good for a while. Then Blackpink performs Kill This Love. The girl groups trade off again with Hot Ride, then How You Like That, with Good Girl closing out the beginning with Face. Then everything goes black, including the stage lights as the huge marquee shows their music video for the first collab album track, Party Up. As the 8 ladies are backstage preparing to perform the next 5 tracks from their album, the entire arena is acting up while singing along. All of them, plus all of the dancers, assemble on the stage as the giant marquee is about to close out the music video to bring the noise for Do It To Me, Trippin', Beep, Don't Let Me Down, and 3 Months. Dramatically choreographed performances all the way into a break for the next music video, Don't Go. Moving from the house party vibes of video 1 to a seductive dark visualizer of big hair, Don't Care, while brandishing pistols to a man that's about to leave. The showing of this matte black video with just their vivacious skin and more vivacious hair allows everyone to take a break over a ballad, then flipping the vibe to saying goodbye to all of the men by performing Losing You, Zipper, Put It On You, Pretty Boy, and Tear the Club Up. Everyone needed a break again after all of those high-octane BPM jams that shattered hips, ankles, wrists, necks, legs, and torsos. The last music video for the night is of their collab over Ooh La La, where the 8 ladies appear at a ski resort doing everything but chilling like the snow in the atmosphere, singing about, I didn't want you to change my day. I didn't want you to change my night. I wanted you to change my life. As the 8 ladies finish their music video sliding down slopes on sleds while making out with eye candy, Blackpink closes the show with Whistle, See You Later, and Forever Young. While trading off between those songs, Good Girl closes the show with Don't Talk Back and Give Me Your Love. The arena goes wild as they steadily shout Encore, Encore, Bravo, Encore, Encore, begging them to never leave this moment in life. They didn't. Jisoo shushes everyone, keeps on shushing them as everyone keeps cheering. It takes all 8 of them to quiet the arena, so Jisoo can say that since they wanted it so bad, they'll perform the bonus tracks from the collab. Something they haven't done all tour long, but the fans wanted them to do more songs together. They did just that. 3 more times, Crazy Boys, Cool, and Porcelain Doll shut the arena down. Had all of the fans in the stands, the bleachers, and on the floor crying their joy away. Out of breath, needing more than a full-course meal, the ladies put their microphones in their right hands, walk to the front of the stage, grab each other's wrists, then all bow together as they say thank you and good night. It was all beautiful. It was all dramatic. It was all dreamy. It was all splendid. 2 hours of their best performance to date and left everyone beyond appeased. Sunday noontime. The following day, the ladies are acting as if their life is complete after a grand performance from last night. So high on life, they brought all of their energy to the Smiling Sun Carnival. Pulling up to the meadow of sunflowers, the tour's camera crew catches them walking to the carnival for the tour documentary. As they were shooting B-roll to Final Fantasy VIII's Overture, they come to the carnival to get their meet and greet on with the locals of Madviller City, partly cloudy over a high metropolitan city that would make anyone feel like they are visiting the grandest version of Hyrule. With the King of Brazil on sight, many of his knights welcome the ladies into the carnival grounds, then escort them through the many walkways, past the carnival games, the carnival rides, and the food court, to end up at a circle of 8 tents to entertain carnival goers, hand out autographs, talk some mess, and take plenty of photos. They all get a booth to themselves, pairing off with another girl from the other group. Good Girl and Blackpink end up causing a smooth ruckus as the carnival continues on its merry way. On the other side of the carnival, a mighty tall brute of a baldy is not having the time of his life as kids keep gathering around him, marveled by his lavender beard, red eyes, and caramel chocolate skin of a color combination that is not helped by the lavender garb he has on, holding up a wrapped-up double sword that seems to be glowing in rainbow colors, just draws in the kids more, when all he wants to do is head to where the scent of food is coming from. He eventually gives in to tell the kids the story how he became what he is. He clears his throat to say, Okay, kids, line up in front of me so I can tell you guys a story. I'm Lord Terrence Prescott. I come from a world that's so far away, it will feel like you're riding a constellation for a few centuries. I call that place the Tri-Stone Era. I'm not the only one with eyes so red, hair so lavender, and things out of this world. All of my friends are just as vivid. All of my friends would love this attention too. Guess what they would love more? All of the kids say us as if they knew it was the right thing to answer with. Terrence tries real hard to not let his feelings show on his face. Real hard. He then says, well, that, but what they would really love are some corn dogs. Do y'all want a corn dog? I can't hear y'all. Do y'all want a corn dog? All of the kids scream to the top of their lungs, and Terrence pulls out his gold bag from within his garb's inner coat pocket, hands all of the kids 5 pieces of gold apiece that would equate to $500. Then all of their parents tell them to give it back to him, but he ultimately says it's okay. His money is as long as the weapon on his back. Then they all march to the scent of corn dogs in the atmosphere, right to the food court to get what they all deserve. As the 13 kids are eating like they've never eaten before, Terrence enjoys talking to strangers from a different world again. The parents tell him what the climate is like in New Brazil nowadays. Talk to him about the missing parents who are at work, the concert from last night, the teenagers of theirs that attended the concert, how those teenagers are sleeping it off, kind of, to the measures they take to keep monsters from entering high-populated areas. All of them know he's a warrior, but they don't know what kind of warrior he is because he won't unsheath his weapon. He just tells them that he's a traveling storyteller, and he may spend some time creating a new fable if monsters come around, but the real monsters he's concerned about are humans. Turns out, all of the parents he's breaking bread with are humans, but there are guys that reside with humans in New Brazil. Terrence asks for their names as if he's some kind of hitman. They all laugh, then tell him about all of the well-known guys that act like leadership throughout this land, as well as the remainder of the continent. Then decides to pick their brains by asking them a very hardcore question. What do you see your children growing up to be? The lovely question really surprised them. Then it surprised him, as they had various serious concerns about their kids being scooped up by some of the new, not named yet factions that have been uprising in New Brazil. One was just alarming, as one of the fathers said that he's worried about one of his boys becoming a witch hunter. Terrence says he'll give him something to steer him away from the life of a slayer. With him having empathy abilities, he felt the truth throughout that lunch, handed over actual dollars to the parents, then walked to the little boy that showed persuasive concerns. Terrence walked to the boy named Nino, asked him to come talk to him. then kneel down in front of him and say, Nino, listen to me. Hold this cube. Now look into my eyes. At eye level, the little boy lost all focus as he was compelled to absorb knowledge from the transparent white cube that began to float while Terrence continued to say, throughout your life, what you're gaining right now is going to be written into your memories, but you won't remember any of this information. You won't remember me telling you to listen to me, telling you to look into my eyes. You will remember that you have a duty to build peace. No matter what your dreams are in life, you will have the urge to always be good and mind the business of peace. This urge won't give you anything right now, but over time, you will always feel like imagining the Tristone era. Whatever your big mind thinks of is true, but take peace with you because peace will always be your best friend. After loosening his compel ability, Terrence then asked, you're welcome. Next time you see me, you want another corn dog? Nino said yes, not knowing that he has a whole universe in his subconscious now, a whole universe that won't allow him to be persuaded by any future faction that comes along in this world. Terrence waves goodbye to everyone, then treads to see more of the carnival, as if it's his domain. At the area where Good Girl and Blackpink are, the King of Brazil is hanging out, absorbing as much inspirational beauty as he can. In the midst of dealing with the tour documentary team being all up in his business, he asks massive questions about keeping the girls safe while they are in his kingdom to other things. His name is Ramono Matero, for short, King da Silva, formally, keeping it light and funny by constantly saying, I'm just here to make friends. I'll be cool if they be cool. In so many variations, having a cameraman losing focus constantly because he won't stop acting up, but in all honesty, regardless of his wordy humorous banter, he has this under control, even if his knights of the round table weren't around, or the 50-11 other Secret Servicemen he has scattered around Madvilla City. Looking at him, he's a stud when it comes to broad shoulders, a lovely tummy, pecs that can save a volleyball game, over lips so juicing, you might just forget he has carnation-colored curly hair on top, with a baby blue beard hugging his jaw. Then there are his spring-colored eyes that bring all of his power in. When he accepted the grandest wizard title of the Wonderful's Coven, his looks permanently changed this way. From black hair and chocolate eyes to a true wizard he came to be. His main 4 categories in Magistry are electricity, life, orbital, and dream, allowing him to back up the pulse of life with electricity while powering any man-made device to elementally being in charge by summoning any type of orb for projectile mastery. Honing all of it with dream-eating or dream-saving abilities that will simply remind you of slow-motion anime action scenes where the right person always comes on top. Yet today, he's with all of the drama as he's wearing all black with a mithril-beaded undershirt that matches his wrist, his arm, and the bottom of his boots. With Ramono saying he means to protect royalty from other nations, continents, and queendoms, wearing mithril beads is never below him. Regardless of his light demeanor, his uppercut game goes extremely harder than a suit of armor he would wear. If it gets that far, he'd rather pick away at enemies with his spirit weaponry that rarely fails. Even though he has massive amounts of ways to protect the 8 ladies as well as their dance crew and documentary crew, the 8 ladies come from warriorhood upbringings too. All 8 of them are zoanthropes. Zoanthropes are super beings with animals as superpowers. Whether they be mammals, amphibians, reptiles, dinosaurs, or monsters, they can transform into hyper forms at a superpower as well as gaining high attributes of their senses. Good Girl. Ariel's superpower is astronomy swordfish. Blue's superpower is mirror griffin. Bobby's superpower is weathering firefly. And Bunny's superpower is, of course, brutal burning bunny. Blackpink. Jenny's superpower is rainbow phoenix. Jisoo's superpower is afterlife ladybug. Lilisa's superpower is gunpowder dragon, with Rosé's superpower being vegetation echidna. Any other situation, if somebody was hiring a mercenary squad, the 8 of them together would make a mighty team. Their hearts are in the right place. The stage life, the super being waves are on the back burner at the moment, while they tend to reflecting togetherness around the globe. While they continue to hug their fans of Brazil, Ramono is finally singing about a new arrival. 2 of his knights have finally made it to Madvilla City, Knight 1 and Knight 7, better known as Rakama Extina and Zordu Basil, who recently welcomed a new baby girl to the world, about 6 months old, and they were becoming restless. As soon as the maternal and paternal leave was over, they set for the road. Now they are at the south entrance of the courtyard. The ladies are occupying introducing Shira to her king. Shira is of Brazilian Egyptian descent. Father is Brazilian and her mother is Egyptian. Beautiful parents with a beautiful baby girl who just happens to be content while she's enjoying all of the fangirls squealing and some of the fanboy yelling. She's laughing it up in the atmosphere as Ramono lets her squeeze his fingers during his baby talk monologue. Such a sweet baby of the universe, been giving her parents a sweet first pregnancy. After introducing her to her king, they start walking in the direction of the food court. Then they stop in the center of the courtyard as Terrence walks up to the north entrance. Terrence has heard about Good Girl and Blackpink through words of mouth. With him being a universal traveling storyteller, he weaves in and out of reality easily because of God's existence abilities. He is always up for inspirational beauty, especially in the capacity of the more the merrier. After stopping at the north entrance, he simply just gazes at all of the happy auras around, then steps out of reality to look at all of the important ladies, going in a counterclockwise motion, where he admires them in the following order: Rosé, Blue, Jisoo, Bunny, Ariel, Lalisa, Bobby, and finally Jenny. Feeling like a lucky man, he doesn't know what's coming next. In the distance, men and women of hatred are preparing to ignite a curse. Just their luck. They have the right victims because Terrence just walked on the final spot. Enchanting horrid language of nightmares, the 75 of them use witch, hunter, anti-magic, and science to make an act so disastrous it's going to be the Burning Sun Carnival. Vese go red on, Ojek Vessel, Pluto, Neptunus, Uranus, Saturnus, Jupiter, Etium, Mars, Terra, Venus, Mercurius. No one. 100 people saying it with the same amount of hatred solidifies the markers they put in place at the courtyard. Glyphs under the feet of Terrence, Jenny, Bobby, a little girl named Noyer, Lalisa, Ariel, Ramono, Bunny, Jisoo, a little boy named Vinny, Blue, Rosé, and oddly, underneath where Rakama and Zordu are holding Shira. The naked eye, if concentrated hard enough, could see drops of energy come out of the ground and shoot up into the sky, then vaporize eventually, holding all of their essence on a glyph to curse all 13 of them that will instantly harm everyone they come near. So it seems. Terrence was still abusing his god abilities by stopping time to move several moments within a moment, not knowing they all chanted that anti-spell at once when he was simply gazing at the beautiful ladies of the girl groups. As he was looking at Jenny's zigzag purple hair, he noticed that it appeared lavender, and the universe whispered to him that he's in danger. Because his body was simply looking like it was in the real world, his spirit form immediately noticed that everything started looking dull. Pink was not pink anymore. Purple was far from purple. Yellow was dull. Red was dull. Blue was dull. Orange was dull. And black was gray. Then he tried to figure out what happened while in God existence control mode. Took him just a few thoughts to go look into his own eyes. That's when he saw a gray film over his red eye color. Then immediately floated around to try to see if anyone else within the area was affected by whatever the universe whispered danger about. One by one, he connected the entire circle, then went to the center to make sure. Looked at the couple looking down at their daughter, then his heart started racing. He looked up into the sky and closed his eyes, begrudgingly looked down at the baby and saw her smiling face, her smiling eyes, then frowned for the gods. Without coming out of existence control, he split his spirit to compel everyone with the gray film over their eyes, then plucked them right from where they were to teleport them out of there before the danger lines connected from one vessel to another. Lots of red electricity lines reaching for one another from vessel to vessel. Then the next thing everyone knows, they are in a tent close to the sunflower field in faint darkness. Chaos ensues at the courtyard as soon as he let the physics of the universe continue. Then chaos ensued in his head as he gave up the existence control only to find out he can't get that ability back. Whatever cursed him was dangerously powerful, in a capacity of 100 chance in 1 second, activating something he really didn't want to discover. Everyone went from sunlight and laughter to what the hell. Terrence immediately went into talking and compelling everyone to just dead tent. But Ramono couldn't be silent. He was asking Terrence why he had Shira in his arms, who were the 2 children of his kingdom, and why Good Girl and Blackpink were there. Everyone wanted to know as he kept everyone from leaving the tent magically because of his superpower, imagination. Categories life, wind, meteor, and ice. Having an invisible force field made out of life and wind energies to keep them from escaping the tent had them all staying put. Quickly realizing he lost his compel ability too as he came out of existence control, had him mindfully panicking as he was looking everyone in their eyes and the 2 kids were trying to get out of the tent, back to their parents. Terrence had to shout to get everyone to be quiet. Silence! After taking a deep breath, he asked the 2 kids what were their names. Vinny and Noyer introduced themselves. A little dark-skinned black girl with 2 huge afro puffs and a little Cuban boy with the brightest red eyes asked if they were in trouble when they figured out they couldn't get out of the tent. Terrence told the king to take Vinny's hand and had Noyer go stand in front of all of the ladies while he softly kept the baby in his arms. When he felt like everyone was mentally there, he simply said, "We have been cursed. I don't know what the curse is, but it has already taken several of my god abilities. I don't want to find out what this curse does, but I sincerely feel like if we don't stay together, anyone is going to boil to death. I don't know how, but I feel hot." Then everyone else felt hot. Not feverish hot, just hot in the sense that if they do spread apart, they will get hotter. That's when the 2 kids started to tear up. Ramono asked, "How do you know we are cursed?" Terrence walked to him and asked him to look into his eyes, then asked him what color are his eyes. Ramono couldn't depict the color because they were very dim, bright like red. Good Girl and Blackpink followed suit. Then they slowly started to panic. No disco. Ramono told Terrence that he is the king and he needs to identify himself, then explained how dangerous he was compared to what he can do now. Terrence said, "I honestly don't know, but you're the grandest wizard around. Please tell me you have a way to break the curse. I can't, and I won't see what will happen if we step away from each other. Come here, Vinny and Noyer." "Hey kiddos, I'm Uncle Crowbar. We're going to figure this out. But I need for you 2 to listen to your king. Please stay with us. I'll try to get you back to your parents as soon as possible." Then a very ugly alarm rung throughout the atmosphere. While the courtyard was panicking, safety regulators set off an alarm because 8 celebrities and their king disappeared with a newborn of 2 of the Knights of the Round Table. As the carnival slowly started to panic because everyone's beloved disappeared, Ramono took heed to what Terrence said about losing his powers. So did Good Girl and Blackpink. They haven't used any of their superpowers since clutching a little girl in front of them out of fear that they might feel hotter because of what he said. While the entirety of the city was moving towards a state of chaos, all 12 of them could hear men say, "Check that tent." "Huh?" "Nah," Terrence forcibly said. "Ramono, get your men together when they come in. I'm removing the barriers." Lucky for Ramono, there were 5 officers he had the pleasure of talking to before he entered the carnival today. When the 5 of them came in and drew their weapons, Ramono held up his hands and said, "Gentlemen, hear me out. A faction is at it again. This god believes that we have been cursed. I need for you to find my 1st and 7th knight. Get them here now so they'll stop panicking about their daughter. Tell the documentary team that they are here, but to keep their distance. I don't feel as powerful as I truly am, and I'm taking what this god says to heart. Please hurry and don't tell anyone, as well as telling the documentary team and my knights to not tell a hot damn soul." After they left, Terrence asked Ramono what powers did he use to realize he didn't feel as powerful. Ramono gulped and said, "I tried to teleport out of here, but I felt hot. Not the good kind of hot." He grabbed Vinny's hand again while the ladies started asking, what are they going to do? Disregarding the state of emergency they are in, they weren't about to run out and see what this curse was about. Everyone started asking Ramono in many ways, does he have a curse breaker? His cringed facial expressions only meant they were about to get an unsettling answer. Ramono shook his head as he said, we'd have to make it all the way back to Rio de Janeiro. From Rondonia? It will take about 3 days to get there. It won't be easy. I don't want to put my people at risk. I'll lead us up to the Knights to figure out. We have to wait for Shira's parents to get here. Terrence, please hand me Shira. Terrence looks at Ramono and says, I can't do that. Ramono asks why, then has it explained to him that she's already content in his arms. The baby will not want to leave them. He thought about it. Then Bobby asked if she could hold her. Terrence declined her as well as everyone else. Then they started to argue about why he was protecting the baby so much. Firstly stating that she is already in his arms. The ladies have no ear, and Vinny believes in his king. Everyone begrudgingly said okay, but Ramono said that her parents will want their daughter back. Then they came in asking for their daughter with their flame swords fully drawn. Terrence turned around while telling them to not approach her because the curse could kill them, and he didn't want their daughter to be an orphan. Then saw that the both of them had flaming swords as if they were literally made out of fire. After his eyes got real big, he looked at Ramono and asked him, the fuck your knights doing with swords like that? Then the parents told Terrence to watch his mouth, then responded with, I ain't got a choice. Y'all gonna do all the protecting? Ramono told Zordu and Rakoma to calm down, get their heads in order, and remember the oath in the sky. That's where they have to go to get to the sanctum he was referring to when talking about a possible way to break the curse earlier. They asked Ramono, does he really want a god to step into his castle? It would be the first time a god was allowed to step on those holy grounds and didn't want to risk the castle getting tainted. As down for being sworn in as possible, Zordu and Rakoma still haven't sheathed their flaming swords, but their emotions were in 3 solid places. Protect their king, protect their daughter, and protect the other 10 people in the tent. Terrence understood those feelings and asked him to trust him regardless of how painful it is. Then asked for an underground way to get them out of the city, or do they have a vehicle big enough to match their presence, but to keep all of them together without getting in a circle or separating all of them more than however big that courtyard was. Zordu said the courtyard was 50 feet in diameter. Everyone but Ramono nodded with their thought of, he is really on his job if he knows measurements like that. Then Terrence said that he believes that the distance they are allowed to be apart is 50 feet. If they separate, anything within 50 feet will be affected by the curse, and with how hot he feels, he really doesn't want to see what it does. He then felt the parents filled with so much feelings of getting to their daughter that he said he wouldn't want to risk them getting in a circle again. All they wanted was to see if she was okay, so Terrence walked to them and told them to not reach for her. They did just that. They said her name and started a coup to her. Then the documentary team came in asking if the 8 ladies were okay. Terrence secured Shira and stepped back from her parents as he learned something else to keep her smiling. Not affected by the heat whatsoever, she was still in a happy place. Didn't care about alarms going off either because Terrence put a protective barrier around her. All kinds of words were thrown out in the air as the 8 ladies were telling their team that there's nothing they can do, especially with a god instilling that they are dangerous on a nuclear level, and possibly radioactive level. Then Zordu tried to do a spell to sense what's going on. Holding his hands up while activating a sensory spell led his palms to burning dark green and started to bubble. He shook it off, then simply shook his head as he knelt down in utter pain and chaos at whatever the feeling was. When he finally gathered his faculties, he felt like they were all nuclear and radioactive. Him and Rakama left the tent to get the other knights. As they told Ramono, they are activating the protocol SOM. SOM meaning science or magic. Either way, everyone in that tent will be hidden from the public eye and moved in secrecy to an unknown location. Ramono told the documentary producer that the tour is on standby and their managers need to be contacted ASAP, as well as putting a lid on it so the rest of the world won't panic at another faction attack gone supremely wrong, making it the 3rd incident in his life that the faction has directly got to him. He waved his arms to make everyone come in, and after he put Benny on his shoulders, He told them all they would make it out of this, but they would have to stay together. If a curse turned his palms that green with his skin starting to boil, had him thinking it would happen to anyone if they separated, stating, "You all are in my land, even you, Terrence. You all are my responsibility to keep alive and safe. We really have to stay together. Whatever my knights say, you all better motherfucking do. Got it?" Then Rakama came back into the tent to say, "We move at midnight. We'll bring y'all food while we try to get the alarms turned off. I'm sorry you ladies have to go through this. Children, please listen to the adults. Your parents will see you again." At midnight, the darkness had all 13 of them moving through the sunflower meadow under lovely moonlight, making their way to a matte black bus, where they all got on it through the rear, then drove a few hours before Zoldu had to stop for rest. He definitely needed it. They have hundreds of miles to travel while keeping their identity of everyone on that bus a secret. Terrence sat in the back the entire time, whopping "Good Girl" and Blackpink, so many actual hymns, much different than their album, to settle the feelings of everyone, while Ramono was in the front brainstorming as much as he could, trying to figure out what faction would bring on a curse like this, and find a perfect time to anchor a god into it as well as his powerful self to really make the curse nuclear and radioactive. Those thoughts led him to think about the ladies too. He has read all of the super being files, learning that all 8 of them are either category 4 or 5 super beings, with the 8 of them being as powerful as they are on top of as influential and famous, only adds more power to the curse to the point that he believed that anyone affected by it will immediately die. This instilled in him that they absolutely can't separate for any reason. Then Zordu relayed information about the other 20 all-black buses that left from different directions of Mad Villa City to make sure that no faction was paying attention to just one bus for protective reasons. While their bus was heavily protected by 40 other vehicles filled with Secret Service men from America and Chiffet, the 2 countries that the girl groups come from, made it so that they really wish they could use the modern transportation of flight, but Protocol SOM said otherwise. They made it to a hotel Noyer. Noyer felt like it was all about her. She needed to smile. No telling what was going on in her little head, and if she would ever see her parents again. Vinny was doing fine, and Shira had plenty of food provided by her mother. They entered the hotel through the underground entrance, for secret reasons, and boarded up in a grand suite. The entire continent of Creatoreous was on high alert, regardless of the hotel staying booked and busy on top of the casino that's attached to it. No one knew where the king was, where Good Girl or Blackpink were, but whatever faction that did this dirty work was very close by, doing what they could do to separate the circle to have everyone in that hotel affected, even if it meant being a sacrifice for the cause of anarchy and taking down any of the current world leaders. The opening they created was pure luck for them. At 0300, a not-so-cloaked individual was with a group of people that were high on life, just coming to the hotel for casino vibes. That individual had a flute on them, one so powerful, the sounds could seep through plaster, wood, concrete, metal, and even force fields, playing off any warnings of danger by pretending to be inebriated. The individual waited an hour while she partied to play the flute to hopefully get the attention of the boy or girl. Both were sound asleep, like everyone else in that suite but Terrence, who was peacefully singing to a sleeping Shira as the sound of that flute didn't register on his ears. It registered on Benny's, who woke up hearing some of the most hypnotic, dangerous peace day music his 7-year-old ears have ever heard. No one heard him open up the door to the suite. Luckily, every room within 50 feet was evacuated, but the entire hotel didn't want to send off any inclination that the 13 people at large were in it. Vinny followed the intentions of the woman playing the flute all the way from the 7th floor to the hotel lobby. Anyone within 50 feet as he descended to the floor level quickly died as their eyes turned white, then their orifices began to leak out green ooze, rendering them immediately lifeless as the ooze boiled and boiled until it cooled down. Blinded by his sense of hearing, he simply walked and walked as their hypnotizing tune made him walk the first floor. Everyone within range was dying. Those that saw it were screaming. Then there was one of Ramono's older knights at the entrance pretending to be a bellboy. When he heard all of the screaming, he quickly identified Vinny by himself, then quickly identified the girl on the back side of the fountain facing the hotel. Without skipping a beat, he shot a magical flare that circled the building and caught the attention of Terrence. Then quickly, to the time travel conundrum, moved so quick to decapitate the woman with the flute. Vinny snapped out of it, then saw all of the dead people around him and started screaming. Terrence woke up everyone as quickly as he could, and all of them descended to the basement at the rendezvous point to wait for instructions, knowing Vinny has been compromised. The knight told Vinny to get to that rendezvous point, as Ramono made everyone follow him until they spotted Vinny at a very long hallway. Vinny was at one end, mad hysterical, with everyone else at the other end. More than 50 feet away, they all had to sprint to each other to close that gap as quickly as possible. Then there came a woman walking through the intersection while they were all at full sprint. None of them could stop fast enough, not a single damn one of them. Then they all saw this curse activate as she was 50 feet away from them, then collapsed while her eyes went lifeless and the green ooze sprayed from her mouth. Bunny quickly picked up Noyer so she wouldn't see it, but Vinny caught an outfall he'll never forget. With Terrence and Ramono having life powers, they tried to resurrect the woman they mistakenly killed. Just a young woman, not even a woman yet, looked as if she was just a teenager. They couldn't resurrect her no matter how many times they tried. Every bit of white energy that came out of their hands would not stick to her vessel, as the ladies had tears in her eyes, with Jenny holding Vinny while he kept crying with his eyes shut. Jenny offered up a phoenix feather, but like Terrence and Ramono, her life powers did absolutely nothing for the poor girl on the floor. The night at the entrance of the hotel eventually came around the corner to tell them all to get back to the bus ASAP. They have to leave now, and he'll send Zordu down as soon as possible. He told them they better not try to see the entrance of the hotel or the casino floor. Keep Noyer from seeing it, and keep Shira from all of that dead energy. None of them could predict this. All precautions were taken, and they had a beyond seasoned night at each of the cardinal entrances of the hotel. None of them recognized the witch hunter. Not all of them have to live with the unforgettable body count left on the first floor, and no telling how many others of the floors up to the 7th and beyond. Ramono took Vinny off of Jenny, grabbed his hand, then knelt down to tell him that it wasn't his fault, while performing a spell to bring great ease to his innocent mind. The 13 of them ended up on the bus, waiting patiently for Zordu to come running down and to draw them out while all of the Secret Service men were informed they get into high gear to move further across New Brazil. They were able to take the nightmarish images out of Vinny's head for a while as he finally went back to sleep when they moved away from that city to go further east. Usually a road trip across New Brazil would be beautifully enchanting, but the matte black bus didn't allow for them to see the beauty it had to offer. Besides, everybody had on shades, ready to give fades, especially when Ramono whispered to the ladies the body count of the incident at the hotel, explaining to them that a woman with one of those dangerous instruments aimed to trick Noyer or Vinny. All 8 of them were mad, disappointed, confused why affection would activate a curse of this magnitude and inflict kids with something they will never forget. By this time, the curse had settled on everyone's vessels and they couldn't see in true color. True vividness, like they did a day ago. It looked like they were slowly going to start seeing the world colorblind, as if everything was going to appear to be black and white. Terrence especially didn't like this, more so because of the conversation revolving around everyone's position in the activation of the curse. With him being at the 12th spot of the circle, he was anchoring most of the power of the curse. He only knew the extent of his true power, but even gods are susceptible to mortality. In any world, they have omniscient-like powers and abilities that render them invulnerable. Doesn't keep them from being affected by anyone as powerful as the god or other gods, leading him to have Ramono think about any guys that could have it out for New Brazil. Then had Good Girl in Blackpink think about any folklore revolving around America and Chiffet that could lead to possible guys trying to get in on the anarchy at the New World Order. He knows about the 400-year history. He's been in this world for some time now, but he's a benevolent god. He's not trying to mess with the physics of this universe at all. All of them had ideas on who could be sponsoring the current faction at large, but without Terrence or Ramono having full access to their actual power, they couldn't even whisper their names powerful enough to summon any of the gods on the list. Zoldu could, but Zoldu doesn't have any weapons that can be used against gods, and no weapon in the hands of Ramono would help him out. All of them asked Terrence to give up his double sword. He wasn't having it. That weapon would definitely take off Zoldu's arm if he gripped it, and he would rather the father of Shira to be able to hold her again someday. Eventually, they roll around to Quayaba, Mato Grosso. There are safe lands within the Black Jungle that they can safely stay at without many people interfering. Zoldu took the bus to refuel it, while 7 teams of Secret Service stayed well over 200 feet away from the 13. They checked in every so often as everyone was able to rest again without the steady vibration of their old school bus. May just created a sky screen so that everyone could enjoy the pool area at the safe land. Terrence gave Shira a bath. Ramono made sure Vinny got a bath, then cleaned himself while all of the ladies took care of Noyer. Then Good Girl took care of her hair once they were all done with pool time. It took a few hours for Zoldu to get back to that safe land to get them to the next one where they'll be staying the night. Completely out of range of the actual Quaba metropolitan area. During dinner, Terrence realized he could use one of his god abilities, Arrest Marching, an ability that allows him to incubus anyone to a state of what he wants. After asking everyone for consent, they could move through the night easily in the form of hiking. Terrence likes to get his walk on. He guided everyone safely through the Black Jungle without a hitch. As the plants glow lovely shades of sky blue and magenta, he could clearly see all of the wildlife and keep them at bay by simply talking to them in their language. Making panthers fear for their lives, keeping giant spiders at bay, and making disease-carrying insects blind to their presence allowed for all of Secret Service in the nights a night of pure rest. So it seemed. Rakama was restless, but with the curse being inactive while all 13 vessels are within range of each other, allowed her to get her hike on all night as well. She was simply in awe of the power this god possessed and how kind he was to everyone within the curse as well as everyone protecting them throughout the curse. Throughout the 8-hour hike, they covered a lot of ground and Terrence had a lot of questions answered about this land by simply seeing a lot of the Black Jungle. Eventually, Rakama asked him, "You haven't allowed anyone else to hold her. Why are you so protective of my daughter?" Terrence explained to her that every vessel should be protected. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was telling her that he comes from a world where he is the creator. Regardless of his stories being the best there is, he has put every single one of his characters in harm's way when he creates a story. He has come to learn that those were brutal lives, but won't do that again, and if he has the chance to protect the child from the bad side of humanity, he's going to take it. Besides, the new baby smell is purely enlightening. It's the reason why he was able to access the ability Arrest Marching. Rakama stops after he says the thing about the new baby smell because she misses smelling her daughter. Then looks back at the 11 orbs behind him as everyone appears to be in a fetal position getting rest. He stops when he realizes that Rakama is just admiring it all, then passes on his empathy feelings to her, of everyone in the orb. She laughs and grabs her braided ponytail to sling it over her shoulder again. What she felt was the tumultuous emotions of the adults even though they were having a beyond time in dreamland. Then she put her hand on her chest when she felt how Noyer and Vinny are looking up to them like role models. That feeling caressed her emotional spirit so good all she could do was tear up and look at her daughter again. Rakama asked for Terrence to hold her out so she can smell her. He advised against it, but got to a leveled area and scanned the area in front of him. Told her to not forget to stay outside of them all, then held out a sleeping Shira. Rakama bent over and took in a whiff that made her grip the handle of her flame sword to remind her to protect. As soon as she did that, danger struck the atmosphere as both of their senses lit up when about 12 hooded individuals surrounded them. Dialogue commenced between them, then Terrence whispered to Rakama to get. He was already telepathically telling Good Girl and Blackpink in Dreamland that they need to wake up with the intention to protect their lives. He sent the same message to Ramono as Rakama was slowly walking forward while reading the enemies within her peripherals. They already knew. The faction that caused this curse is immune to it. Her flaming sword came out, then all of the light in the area disappeared because the plants felt the sun energy from her weapon. The only light around was of the 3 orbs encapsulating the children. He slowly placed Shira in her protective bubble, then finally grabbed the double sword on his back so he could unwrap it. As he unwrapped it, Blackpink busted into the area. Good Girl exploded out of their orbs, and Ramono came walking out of his like it was his birthday, talking about, "Oh, y'all want some of this?" A giant battle commenced with the intentions of separating the 13 and taking them so they could purposely spread the curse the way they intended to. Jisoo and her ghost powers pulled every single one of the hooded figures closer to them, knowing good and well they planned on separating them. To keep them from being separated, the battle stayed close as the hooded figures couldn't figure their way out of it to get at least one of the kids out of the orbs. All 12 of them had god daggers that would make that happen, but none of them were having that after they saw that young woman die at Hotel Noyer. Without being able to resurrect them, they knew what they had to do. All spirit weapons alive, Jisoo made her spirit Kyojin whip out tentacles for maximum damage. A Kyojin is an eyeball monster with tentacles. Lalisa had her spirit Trishulas slashing against time and space. Jenny was electric smashing with her spirit guitar, and Rosé's spirit sword and blaster were helping to keep the area lit. Rakama was already a mile away while unsheathing her flame sword, then swinging from vine to vine without carelessly falling into a spider's den. She lit a fire that she controlled with her rainbow powers to keep any creatures from trying to attack her while she surveyed the battle. Carefully watching Bobby brand 2 spirit whipping swords like she was born with them in her hands. Admiring Ariel brandish a spirit sword that oddly matched her spirit Iobin that roamed around keeping the hooded figures from retreating. And Iobin is a wolf with wings. Loving how Blue handled spirit fingers with a slash game that was decimating some of the Black Jungle too, then almost started cheering, seeing Bunny embody the Final Fantasy strategy of a spirit barbarian whipping sword. Because of the extremely fast-paced battle of trying to keep them from getting to the 3 orbs in the center, none of the natives of this world could figure out the clothing of the hooded figures. It wasn't until Ramono unleashed a volley of orbital lasers from the perimeter facing the battle that it turned entirely to their favor. Steadily chanting dangerous words that would out their location to anyone flying above, he kept his breathing cadence entirely dangerous as he outparried the hooded figure he was battling. Over and over again, while it took him a few minutes to build up the intense energy meant to decimate them. Without them knowing what was coming their way, when those 15 feet in size 13 orbs made a circle around a battle, all of the hooded figures simply gulped, then were severed or lost their god blades trying to jump out of the way of the giant lasers, giving Terrence the opportunity of wind imprisoning the remaining 5, allowing him to empath some knowledge out of them while they all catch their breaths. Good Girl and Blackpink standing around without breathing hard because they are used to performing for 2 hours almost twice on a daily basis had them looking like goddesses. Then Ramono started high-fiving them all, out of breath talking about, "I don't see how y'all be doing all of this on a daily basis." Rakama started approaching while everyone was laughing but the hooded figures. Ramono was already telling her it's okay to administer a quick torture session. Hands on his knees while collecting his faculties had Terrence kind of admiring his rump while he used his sensory abilities to ensure more enemies weren't around. When Rakama got into range again, he felt her presence and realized no one was around, not to his or her knowledge. When she got back with the group, she asked Ramono if any of his life abilities returned. He tried to heal one of the damaged hooded figures, but his powers weren't doing anything. Just great. If they got damaged and needed repair, Terrence couldn't heal either of them, but the Zoanthropes didn't have to worry about that. They were fine as they were checking up on each other in the orbs of the kids. Rakama said it'll be fine. She'll execute them anyway, if they don't give us any information. As Terrence loosened the gust around them, all of them could recognize the clothing as Sayal Vet, the first faction to strike after the New World Order, 300 years ago. They all speculated it was them earlier. Well, one of the 7 they thought it was. Unfortunately for Good Girl and Blackpink, they were just in the wrong area at the right time, but honestly, couldn't get out of it if they were at another tour date. Their plan was to affect every fucking body, known primarily for targeting world leaders and diplomats. The risk with using a god as a catalyst for the curse was ultimately up to the current leader. Then one of the guys finally said something after Terrence dialogued some of their emotions, talking about he had no right to talk about what they are doing and this world needs to return to its golden ages. Oh, he's the leader of this pack, Terrence said joyfully as he approached him, then snapped the neck of the man next to him so hard his head was almost ripped from his body. Rakama said, "Well, that's one way to torture them." Terrence then apologized, stepped backward, then extended his hand to give Rakama the go-ahead and do her nightly duties. She pulled out a small hook blade, then cut off the sigil from inside of the pack leader's hood. He tried to bite her, but she chin-checked him enough to not knock him all the way out, then asked Terrence to fish around for the chant they used to power the curse. As Terrence said the first word of the chant, everyone affected by it immediately felt immense brain damage and took a knee. It was the first time Shira cried in a long time and the kids started screaming bloody murder. It was safe to say that no one in the curse could reverse the incantation of it. Then we all saw tears roll down Rakama's face as she wanted to make a beeline for her daughter, but her instincts were already aligned with the precautions of never entering the circle of the curse. Once Terrence's brain stopped melting, he wrote down what he thought the chant was. Then Rakama spoke it while holding the sigil she cut from the hood. As soon as she finished whispering the last word, the pack leader fell susceptible to the curse as she gained immunity. It was the first time somebody else held Shira. As she reached into the orb Terrence opened for her, the tears that fell from her face hit her daughter's clothing as she began to hum gracefully for her to try to soothe her. That wasn't doing a trick to stop the crying. All everyone else could do was hope that she didn't get any standing brain development damage. Rakama eventually pulled out an all-healing rainbow potion and dabbed a bit of it on her lips. That stopped Shira from crying. Then the tears stopped flowing. Good Girl and Blackpink were over there fanning their eyes and trying to stop their tears from falling too. All the way worried about the baby had Terrence and Ramono putting their hands over their heart. Now with them knowing the chant that powered the curse, they knew they were on the right path to reverse it. But none of them could say it, especially after the noon anchor tried to say the first word. The other 3 hooded figures still couldn't move, but they were working diligently with their minds to keep Terrence from getting a clue of any other information. After he told Rakama it's time they could be released into the sweet void of death, she handed her daughter over, then told us all to keep moving to the rendezvous point. The kids were put back to sleep as Shira was handed to Terrence again. After all of the lovey-dovey feels that Rakama were going through, bless Terrence's dome, this switch of innocence was flicked off to pure rage as her flame sword was taken out again. They all started walking away as Blue said, "Ooh!" Surprisingly, when that flame sword turned into a bigger flame as Rakama powered it up, way more than she has displayed since the beginning of this scenario. All everyone heard as they jogged away with their hands covering their hair were 3 screams as she stabbed their ankles to sever them off, then took their equipment, then leaving them in this beautiful glowing black jungle for the panthers or giant spiders to get. She eventually brings up the rear while sending messages to the other knights in Secret Service in preparation to fight back as well as rounding up known members of Sayal Vet. Good Girl and Blackpink couldn't sleep after that high-octane battle, but they had questions about how they were spending their time in Dreamland. With Ramono having powers over dreams, while they were being carried through a dreamy but dangerous atmosphere, they were really intrigued by what was going on in their dreams. Growing up in this heavily considered war era, this allows everyone from gaining actual knowledge of different nations. Ramono took it upon himself to tell them everything they have been asking about since they have had all this time with the king, ever since entering New Brazil for this leg of their tour. With agriculture, geography, government, and a slew of other things being boring, he decided to take them on a tour of the castle in the sky. Like all other nations, kingdoms, and queendoms, their strongholds are off limits to the general public. because of situations like the curse at hand, even though some of them hold high magical powers, so it seems, like the castle in the sky. Most witch hunting methods would negate such things. Not when it comes to this stronghold. Science is the reason why that huge landmass is in the air over in Rio de Janeiro. It's being held in place by 6 giant chains, all purposely built with mechanics that allow for easy rides up and down, incorporating the bundino, but with current day technology allows for rides to take 5 minutes up and 3 minutes down. The ladies and the kids all rolled up in a dream. All were able to read the information in the cart and see the ride up from the northeastern chain. Even though the ride up is mad fast, there's friendly gravitonium involved with the entirety of the castle in the sky. That negates ear popping in real life. Gravitonium is how it floats. It floats at an elevation of 6 miles above ground level. It's measured at 3 square miles, with the gravitonium pit below measured at 7 square miles. The height of the island in the sky is 3 miles. It's shaped like a diamond-cut cube. The inner sanctum they will be going to break the curse is at the bottom of the island. It's heavily protected by its own gravitonium harness that makes all projectiles of any kind of capacity move around it as if its gravity is pushing out. Throughout its almost 400-year life, it has never failed to a successful energy or matter attack. It's one of the safest safe rooms around the world. The sanctum holds the gate to the totem of the Wonderful's coven. Last but not least, regardless of the island being as high as it is, indefinitely provides a death drop rate. It actually doesn't. Because the pit itself is a gravitonium harness, anyone can jump off of the island in the sky and survive. As soon as they pass the bottom tip, their descending speed drops and eventually gains the ability to swim through the gravity pit. In a lot of cases, everyone with diplomatic, royal, knight, and coven access have done it. In the dream, Ramono takes them to the castle where he resides as well as the grounds of the coven he rules over. Benevolent in all cases, he treats the ladies and the kids to visuals of how the castle looks during the day and during the night, as well as making it snow so they can really catch its magic. It's one of his favorite things to do. Snow flurries that high while seeing the beauty of snow in New Brazil is very unearthly, but magic does what it wants. While giving them the tour of their dreams, all of the ladies act as if they were given the ability of lucid dreaming. Completely provided by both Terrence and Ramono, was the reason why they all came out guns blazing, so to speak. They were more than rejuvenated as the 2 powerhouses of the curse gave them enough backbone to even the playing field of an ambush. They went from tasting lavender champagne to being highly upset they had to stop drinking that lavender champagne. The 8 of them were toasting to coming out of this curse alive at that moment. Then Terrence's giant voice told them what to expect when they wake up and what it will look like so they could easily unguard their spirit weapons. That was a surprise to Terrence, Ramono, and Rakama, because even though the 2 auras read their files, they barely paid attention to their weapons. Spirit weapons are supposed gifts from the universe. They are reflections of vessels that used to be. As they expired naturally, they were able to decide in the afterlife where they wanted to go. If they choose to have a weapon version of themselves made, they will do so. That will act as a portal to their general power, and giving them more power will grant access to deeper dangers of the spirit's power. The weapons themselves are always hidden at first, mostly appearing in decked out treasure chests in the most mundane places where eyes usually can't see. Around the world, archaeologists usually are the ones that unearth them, either by urban legend or simply following a gut instinct as they go around dusting things off. To answer how Good Girl and Blackpink gain access to such weapons stems from their upbringings. They all come from lovely lives that have them looking as glorious as they look now, but because of their choices in life, they were all given a chance to meet spirit weapons. The weapons they have chose them. It's the only way they could end up with them. Over the many years of their existence, they have mastered these weapons with the help of the spirits. The spirits take them to their dimension and personally gives them everything they need to survive in life as well as prepare them for the afterlife. simply by telling them in many ways, your life is yours to create. They have heard this phrase plenty of times in a multitude of ways from the spirits as well as other warriors they were blessed to spend time with in their youth. It's the main reason why they are such glamazons, such lovely ladies that strike the best at midnight when the clubs need to be torn up or simply to vibe out while someone rides out. Their spirit weapons are highly satisfied to serve them. Terrence, Ramono, and Rakama can all feel that, even though Rakama doesn't have a spirit weapon of her own. When the sun started to rise, they were just coming out of the black jungle of Quayeba. The vegetation stopped glowing in shades of sky blues and magentas, started to glow in savory greens that were brighter than their actual greens, then trickled over to appearing to be black plants again as the glowing rested for sun hours. Zoldu was standing outside of the bus, twiddling his thumbs, worrying about his daughter and everyone else. Secret Service were within eye range, but drove off to assume their radar positions again while all 13 of them came out of the black jungle. Another day of driving was on the horizon as Rakama ran up to her husband to give him the biggest of hugs while telling him all kinds of things that happened throughout that hike. He had no problem with accepting a sweaty hug and kissing her sweaty forehead. She then gave him one of the sigils she cut from the other hoods while holding on to the other 3 she confiscated. He quickly spoke the chant so he could regain ability to hold his daughter. She was now fully awake, between her parents the way she was taken from them at the beginning of this messy curse. Their family reunion was felt not only by Terrence this time. Rakama said goodbye to everyone for now, so she could occupy a hotel room to freshen up, then get into one of those Secret Service vehicles to rest until nightfall again. They had one more day of traveling with the other black buses around the kingdom. Everyone kept their fingers crossed that nothing bad happened as they rode around listening to Good Girl and Blackpink talk about the events overnight to the documentary crew filming it all. Gleeful to the max that all 8 of them are still alive. They talk about the safe land, the black jungle before nightfall, the black jungle during nightfall, what lucid dreaming feels like, defending themselves from the say-all vet, and most importantly, living to see another day. Because they are just filming and not uploading anything to the internet, they are able to remain incognito on a matte black bus. Terrence and Ramono are in the back with the kids just simply chatting about things in the midst of listening to the ladies explain things. They are preparing the kids to fly Pegasi, Pegasides or Pegasuses, whichever plural version of Pegasus you prefer. Later on tonight, when they make it to one of the black sites of the Wonderful's coven, where the 5 other heads of the covens will await their leader with enough Pegasi they can get into the air safely. They will make it to Urbalandia by 10 p.m., then reconvene so they can fly throughout the sky safely instead of using an airplane that will definitely show their exact place in the world. Technology is a crutch in a crisis of a curse that can straight up kill anyone immediately. But with the coven clearing the skies across the entirety of New Brazil, no satellite or airplane radar will be able to expose them. The other grand wizards of the coven are named Bruno Richolo, Leandro Volcas, Hexai de Memo, Roxy Izet, and Eluva Unji. The 5 of them look as magical as Ramono, if not more, especially the 2 ladies, looking like they stay in the makeup rooms of Elle, Ebony, Vogue, and other high magazines. Their initial reaction to seeing their king is to go give him a hug, but with them only having so many sigils and no one being able to spot other members of Sayal Vet, this allows that. The 5 of them are mad sad, but join hands with their king in a hexagon as soon as they see him under the starry skies of the Pegasus Ranch. The rest of the 13 are behind Ramono, but with them having high order protection spells on, they can at least touch his hand and do the Wonderful's greeting. All of them say, Impas para sempre, close their eyes, look up, float a foot, then descend back down. Down to business they get to. Everyone faces the 13 while standing a foot behind Ramono, telling them the path of flight and who the kids will be flying with. Then Good Girl gets into an argument about who's going to take Noyer. Ariel and Jisoo have spirit animals as weapons. All they would need is the proper fuel for them so they can fly the entire flight without issues. The Grands provide 2 ladies with the fruit needed for the 3-hour flight. Because Ariel has a spirit Aoben, Noyer wants to fly with her. Her other 3 bandmates begrudgingly let her have that as the 2 of them stick their tongues out and hug it out. Because of the crisis the curse provides, everyone will be on a black Pegasus with black harnesses. Lucky for them, all of the ladies already know how to pilot Pegasi. All they needed to do was get a harness for Ariel's Aoben, named Zazara, and a comfortable swing for Jisoo's Kyojin, named Naola Madev. Because Zoru is on a day shift, he'll be sitting this one out as Rakama will carry her daughter through the skies but with a different sword to not bring attention to anyone that is stargazing through the night. Then there's Vinny. Because of the swing situation with Naola Madev, Jisoo volunteers to carry him. With him being so small, it'll be easy for the eyeball tentacle to carry the both of them. Once everyone was paired with a professional Pegasus, they got their air cannons just in case they run into any dragons in the sky or say all vet. Bruno, Leandro, Hexai, Roxy, and Aluva led off the flight by at least 100 feet. Equipping themselves with night vision as well as the Pegasi, Aoben, and Kyojin allows them to keep their eyes completely open as they try to stay high enough over all of the jungles to avoid metros, but low enough to avoid dragons. Because Bobby's superpower is weather and Lalisa's superpowers are gunpowder and dragon, the 2 of them fly above the pack in anticipation a dragon might sniff them out. As soon as their luck is non-existent, halfway through the flight, way before the lead part of the pack gets to them, Lalisa yells to them below that they could have company, but she's using her dragon language skills to try to keep their flight as peaceful as possible. Laying all jokes about midnight snacks aside, Lalisa started singing, then the other 7 singers started pondering, why is she singing that song? Then Terrence literally shouted, wait, this song is in this world? And then everyone looked at him like he lost his mind. Then everyone started asking, wait, hold up now. In several different ways as the Pegasus slowed down because of everyone's uncertainty, making them pull back on their hackamores, in turn making the leading pack realize the backpack had slowed down to an extent. Then Lalisa stopped singing to scream, we can't stop moving. Now if y'all do not mind, sing with me. As everyone readjusted their position and the flight patterns, if you had super being hearing, you could hear Rakama say, I'm glad I'm not hungry. Then started to sing, bitch, lasagna, bitch, lasagna. Along with everyone as everyone started laughing hysterically when they couldn't contain themselves. But doing all of this uplifted the vibe as Lalisa fixed her vocal cords to sound like she has echoes. Without actually transforming, she started to speak in echoes, as any sleeping dragon with enhanced smelling wasn't going to pay attention to them because Lalisa started to sing a lullaby to keep them asleep. Yet, this woke up child dragons that started to fly with the Pegasi just to be the mischiefs their tired parents don't want them to be. Before everyone realized what she was doing, about 40 child dragons came out of nowhere just to fly above Minas Gerais. The starry night sky was eventually filled with more wings, as everyone was informed that now they have child dragons covering them. They should be good for the rest of the flight, even if adults wake up. They started spiraling just for the heaven of it, really hoping they do not wake up any adult dragons. Funny to everyone that Lalisa's urban legend of a name is even worldwide to dragon colonies in the sky or on the ground. Before the packs were about to clear over into Rio de Janeiro, one of the dragons asked if Lalisa would pet her. Turned out, her name was Talia, a beautiful pink dragon that resembles Toothless, but with girly features, gold talons, gold horns, and wisteria-colored eyes. As Lalisa mounted Talia, she began to pet her, and she started talking about the Zora legions. Then Ramono joined the conversation, because if a dragon clan of his kingdom is in that allegiance, they could help each other when it comes to say all vet. Talia said sure that Ramono never felt more appreciative than to have a celebrity in his land. Dragon magic, period, is rare, whether it's in superpower form or spellbinding form. Regardless of the wonderful coven having magic that expands past this galaxy, none of their members have chosen it as a category for spellbinding. Tonight just happens to be their lucky night. Talia calls for her father, then Lalisa tells everyone to land except for Ramono. Terrence decides to stay up there because he does what he wants and he loves looking at adult dragons. Shortly after the three of them remain hovering and minding their business, they hear a roar. Then they see several glowing eyes in the clouds. Several. They keep growing, then one of them leads the clouds to approach his daughter, talking about his name is Havario. Oof. An emperor dragon that closely resembles Bahamut from the Final Fantasy X world. Regardless of his natural dragon scales looking like armor, every piece of his scales are red. He has gigantic golden horns, golden eyes, golden talons, gold skin, and a 20-foot golden scythe as his tail ornament. Wingspan reaches up to 60 feet, with his entire body, from his horns to his scythe, extending to 64 feet. Hyvario sounds like Ian DeCasticker, with a steady mean tone, especially right now, as he hovers while saying, little one, why are all of you awake? What's the meaning of this? Why can't y'all be good little dragons and listen to your parents? Do you all not have good enough lives? Do you all want to be taken out of your lives? Do y'all not know that we brought y'all into this world to do what we tell y'all to do? You're going to be in timeout for 3 years if y'all do this for a 5th night in a row. 4th and final warning. I tell you, I haven't had to body slam a child in ages. Your mother and I should have never went to that Yom Kippur party 10 years ago. Talia, in a very puzzled demeanor, rambles joyfully about a human rapper waking them all up, but Havario knew they weren't going to stay asleep at all. The last thing he needs is any of the child dragons getting slain by humans or other monsters of the night. When Talia finally said Lalisa's name, Havario cheered up and smiled, then said, "In the flesh?" A giant dragon smile filled up the sights of everyone in the air. Then Terrence and Ramono were introduced to him by Lalisa. The 4 adults had a conversation about the current events of humans so they could ask an adult emperor dragon for help. There's a first time for everything, right? Terrence decides to keep his mouth shut. He has, plenty of times, worked with many different mythical creatures during his many lives. This one is a different situation because of the human-dragon relations of this world are almost non-existent other than simply just letting each other be. Yet, regardless of a human icon being in the presence of Havario, he keeps looking at Terrence and Ramono, but more so at Terrence. After coming up with a spoken alliance of certain help right now to the next day, Hyvario couldn't help but to ask, "Excuse me, you aren't from this world, are you?" Honestly, with the way things happened 400 years ago, galaxy magic opened up the threshold of life to this world to the point the very physics of this world changed for the worse and the better. When the humans realized there was no such thing as actual holy blood families, actual gods came down to bless the entirety of humanity, even though the old ways of the patriarchy went listen and absorb. The ways of the matriarchy honor existence's true paradise. They can be witnessed as Good Girl and Blackpink have been helping to go against the entirety of this curse. Then there's Rakama's saving grace of putting her maternity instincts aside for the betterment of tomorrow. Because of believing that men actually can care for children, they have made it so far with a death count of less than 100, minus the foot soldiers they killed in the Black Jungle. As Havario floats in the air, slowly flapping his giant wings and awaits Terrence's answer, the 2 of them are sharing a cosmic connection higher beings are all too certain of. Disregarding that his eyes are covered by a transparent gray film, he can see Terrence's spirit as bright as his daughter's pink scales. In those split seconds of ambient silence, he knows for certain that he has to help them regardless of what Terrence answers with. Terrence blinks, then says, "I'm from another world. They will accept you if you help us." Hyvario looks at King Da Silva, then asks him when will they need the help of his dragon clan. After giving him the specifics and what signs to look for after the curse ascend to his castle, the 3 humanoids descend to where the rest of the circle is. The documentary crew was already on the ground and caught everyone descend gracefully on their Pegasi, the Iobin, and the Eyeball. Camp was set as they were put in a different vehicle other than a bus to be taken to campgrounds a good 100 miles away from the castle to prepare to wait out Sayal Vet until Ramono is actually comfortable with stepping to the northeastern Bandinio so they can make their way into the inner sanctum. They weren't planning on taking so much time, but no matter how much magic was used to try to smoke Sayal Vet out, they were waiting more patiently for their next move so they can split the 13 victims apart to make victims out of the entire world. Day 3 finally gave them the green light to go. The Knights of the Round finally figured out why Sayal Vet have been laying low. They've been doing their leaders' bidding by connecting with other factions to ensure they separate the 13 when they get up to the castle. They are waiting up there for everything and anything, eating all of the riches the Wonderfuls have created over the centuries. Luxurious portals to infinity forms that have everything the food pyramid provides, and guides tons more. Ramono warns everyone that they are fully fueled up, but the Knights had enough of the strongest provisions to give everyone a fighting chance, because the curse is making sure the secret services of America and Chiffet will not be lending their strategies, hands, or powers. In fear of their lives ending, they will not be accompanying the 13 on their mission because not enough sigils were taken and converted. It'll be Zoldu and Rakama with their 11 comrades accompanying the circle on their ride up on their traverse to the castle to get to the inner sanctum. On the third night, the final night before they got the news, led Ramono sacrificing more of his power that he couldn't get back. Ramono had everyone lay in a circle on cots in the same position they were in at the courtyard so he could purposely walk them in dreamland from riding the Bodinio to the docking station. From there, all paths to the island in the sky to the actual castle grounds had all 12 of them living a dream of visuals even Terrence's imagination couldn't create. Much different than the dreams from the Black Jungle Night, this dream had different motives. There they stood at the entrance way to the castle. Rainbow walls of the Wonderfuls. 2 giant walls that are 11 stories in height, a quarter in mile length. There was Terrence, for his first time in Dreamland since the beginning, hogging Shira as everyone stood shoulder to shoulder, looking down the hallway to the castle doors. Ramono told us that when it's time, we have to run here as fast as possible and run through these walls so we can get in the castle. No telling where they are hiding. No telling how they will all get distracted. This is why he is bringing them on a tour. Over and over again. Over and over again. Throughout the night, so none of them get apprehended by the faction or their allies. Ramono stepped forward to enter the parallel walls, then said, "When you break this threshold, you and only you will see 2 flames at eye level, one on each wall. Glossy red to orange to yellow to green to blue to purple to indigo, all the way down this walkway. You will see a flame on each wall every time you come down here, and they will be mesmerizing. There won't be time for that, so walk with me so you all can get it out of your system." Ramono walks gloriously first as everyone follows suit. Instead of seeing their reflections, they see the flames he was talking about. Even in Dreamland, the hypnotism made all of them stop, especially Terrence, as he was the last one to walk through. He looked to his right, then looked to his left. While walking continued, he started to talk to a dreamy baby Shira. "Hey, remember me?" "Yes, you do. You're going to be just fine, like your parents have been telling you for the past 5 days. You're going to grow up in a beautiful world. You're going to be a beautiful child. You're going to be maybe a not so beautiful teen, but when you create yourself, when you've grown so much, you're going to come back here someday. From the glossy red to orange to yellow to green to blue to purple to indigo, you're going to see yourself to the left and right. The fire within is going to change throughout your life, like a mood ring. Round and round you'll go, hopefully clockwise and never counter, in the right direction, being guided by everyone that helped protect you thus far. Your older brother and sister, Vinny and Noyer, Ariel, Blue, Bobby, and Bunny are going to help you keep it good. Jenny, Jisoo, Lalisa, and Rose will help you get to every area. Now that king of yours, baby girl, he is going to give you everything you've ever wanted. Can you tell me what you want? You want to spin again? And another spin? I hope your laugh stays this bright your entire life. I'm going to miss you. That was just that moment. Ramono guided everyone into the castle after they cleared the rainbow walls of the Wonderfuls. Through the loveliness of his castle they went, having to weave throughout floors 1 through 5 just to get to the long throne room, where they congregate with the coven members on special occasions of sacrifices. 2 separate entrances that can be accessed through a series of doors to flights of steps that go up and down. Once entered, the 2 front doors will walk them into 2 sets of 10 columns with a luxurious red carpet, lingering from the entrance to the 6 throne chairs that are set up as a hexagon. This room is where they need to get to hastily, so they can all be sure to descend lower into the castle the quickest to get to the inner sanctum at the bottom. Otherwise, they will have to do a lot of traversing, and Ramono doesn't want to take any chances because of not knowing the total numbers of faction allies within his castle. After going through the walkthrough once, then going through 2 full runs, Terrence and Ramono open their eyes as everyone else stays in dreamland, peacefully. Immediately, they sit up to turn around to each other because the second run-through had the 2 of them standing behind everyone that was allowed to view that specific throne room. They looked at each other for the first time in dreamland because Terrence hadn't caught any Z's until that night because of the camp being safe. In dreamland, they didn't have that gray film over their eyes ruining their true range of color. It was the first time they peered into each other's soul, right before the stress of the curse was about to explode into a powerful kiss. They both suddenly emerged from dreamland at the same time, as Ramono lost all control over his dream abilities. They hurried to get off of their cots to take advantage of a sudden desire to taste each other's lips. From the dimly lit cot area under the bug net, they hurried to get out of the side entrance so they could occupy some darkness. When Terrence feels like they have made it far enough from camp, he grabs the hand of Ramono and pulls him back to a sudden kiss that shouldn't have happened yet. Any other circumstance, the many men would have made this connection the first time they shook hands. Now the joining of their kisses was the first time their dormant forces mixed, forcing a shockwave that affected their naked eyes within a 30-foot radius, furthest by an easy shockwave of white lights that evaporate in a million lines. After the 49th severely forceful kiss from the both of them, Terrence stopped, then held his lips against Ramono's, followed by him taking Ramono's head into his hands to move him backward as well as bringing his head backwards so he could look into the gray film that was not getting in the way of when they looked into each other's eyes in dreamland, then kissed, the 50th time, as the 30 feet that surrounded them glowed a very serene bright green. This kiss started creating love out of nothing at all, as they were being covered by all kinds of gentle vegetation with lights as small as fireflies laying across all of the sudden plant life growth. While it spread, more little lights filled the atmosphere as their energy continued to get tangled in each other. They became discombobulated as they gently teleported to another dimension as if it was that easy. Unfortunately, when gods develop any kind of love energy for somebody, the unknown could happen. In this instance, the unknown is them teleporting to a brand new dimension. After all of the pretty lights and scenery of a new world being created, Terrence finally says, "All I can hear when you talk is a new universe." That's the sexiest thing I've ever heard, the constant sound of your voice. To Terrence, the entire time during this curse, the serenity of this king's voice has been his inner sanctum away from home. That's why he has been believing everything he says. The women they are on the road with, and his nights, all because the confidence that Ramono speaks brings these vivid spirals of a difficult nature. You know how vortexes feel when you see a crush for the first time to the second, third, fourth, fifth, so on and so forth. The saving grace of those spirals were when he finally saw those spring green eyes and the forces behind them. But in dreamland, Even if he uses a minute amount of his god abilities, he weakens himself in reality because of the curse. Terrence had done a great job with reserving his powers throughout this ordeal, but those spring green eyes fucking ruined whatever he could have done on their run to Ramono's inner sanctum. That teleport to another dimension, instant turned universe, may have solidified a connection of ether. It also lowered their chances of success with their saving grace. He knows that deep down, he can only control existence once the curse has been lifted. Other than that, he is simply just a mortal with his underlying level 1 abilities that would still have him considered a level 5 mutant, rendering him the only one to clutch Shira without the ability to lend long-range help during the fights, because any god that falls in love can be considered a ticking time bomb. With that, Ramono has been told that the morning will be more dangerous as he was encapsulated by passion, lust, feelings, desire, and the want for that kind of liveliness to stay. Terrence spoke dangerous poetry to him before he pulled the magic carpet from beneath his feet. All Ramono could react with was, rendering yourself powerless doesn't mean anything. After I get us out of this trouble, you can get us out of the next heap of trouble, or bless us with more trouble. We can turn trouble into a verb if you want. Then both of them stupidly say, "Gay," followed by hysterical laughing. Then a hug that had Ramono's ear next to Terrence's heart. Rhythm had Ramono asking how long can they stay there safely. Terrence told him forever and a day, since whatever universe they just created can be designed by them. If they wanted to, they could spend eternity in the half-second when they were brought there. It was that easy to fall into the sound of the machine in Terrence's chest. Ramono felt like it sounded like Izza's bend the knee. Hypnotic forces, having him want to bend his knees and watch Terrence bend his knees. The both of them thinking about sweet everythings as their feelings continue to map out pleasure throughout the universe Terrence took them to. Looking like a new circulatory system was coming out of their bodies as plant life continued to grow from their location like the tree of life was just planted, rising thoroughly like every muscle from their dome to the core and not missing a region of their souls. Ramono couldn't tell how much time passed by as he occasionally opened his eyes every other minute or hour. Terrence let 13 hours pass, giving him enough time to add more fuel to the fire that Ramono was building. He meant what he said about getting them out of trouble for the purpose of creating more. The X-rated kind to the earth-shattering kind to the putting Earth back together times. Then they were in the darkness of their camp again. The both of them were so high on life in that darkness as they kept a new secret love behind their lips, behind their thoughts. They had a few hours before it was time to make it to the northwest Bodinio. The both of them laid on their cots with the scent of each other's pheromones in their beards. The ladies of Good Girl and Blackpink were still knocked out in dreamland, going over strategies for close range to long range combat to ensure that the kids were up on game when it came to sticking close to them without getting harmed by their many ways of detriment. Ramono's Dream Link allowed them to rest their vessels but work on successfully protecting one another while he was working on spells with lingering effects to be activated as soon as they stepped foot on an island in the sky. Ramono dipped back in on the final hour before the alarm went off to tell the ladies that they should expose their zoanthrope forms to the kids. It could show a valuable sign of faith to Vinny and Noyer. They did just that. Ariel was up first, but in most instances, for combat purposes, zoanthropes do not take the time to transform. They instantly white light morph into their hybrid forms in and out of combo connectivity, self-defense, and for the heaven of it, to survive. Because they could take their time and be the artists they have developed themselves to be, Ariel took her time transforming. Due to keeping the color scheme of the Torah true, her eye color has been yellow the entire time instead of her usual blue. Before transforming, she let Vinny or Noyer see her blue eyes, then slid back a while, spinning ever so gracefully, then stopped as she faced them about 15 feet away. She kneeled down as a million trillion stars filled her immediate vicinity, then one by one, very quickly attached to her vessel as white transformation energy enveloped her. Even though planets Venus and Mars are no longer in the same skies, They still showed up as all planets of the galaxy surrounded her body while her vessel transformed into a swordfish hybrid. As beautiful as she is, her hybrid form is just as beautiful, regardless of her dome having to be big to support the sword emerging from the middle of her dome. When it lengthened out to 4 feet, the white energy started disintegrating as yellow fish scales unfolded from the tip of the nose sword to her dome, down her torso, and arms to her legs. As the scales came into sight down her much longer tail, she spun down into a bowing position, then rose up as she was still spinning so the kids could see her very tall swordfish hybrid form. Astronomy swordfish. Blue did the same thing, let the kids look into her eyes before stepping back to transform. Before activating the transformation, she began to float as her braids flowed throughout the air. Then a mirror appeared under her, as well as 7 mirrors surrounding, then orbiting her like the planets did Ariel. The mirrors shot rays into Blue's vessel that enveloped her in white transformation energy, then shattered as they fell into the giant circular mirror below her. The pieces fell into the liquid mirror as her body fell down into it, then came out flying to slowly flapping her giant wingspan. Her wingspan ended up 30 glorious feet as the white energy snapped and disintegrated as the loveliest shade of cerulean swept everyone's range of sight. All of the feathers on her body were cerulean and provoked nothing but a sense of hypnotism that had the kids on the edge of their seat. As she descended, the mirror disappeared slowly and was virtually gone when her silver talons touched the ground first. Then cools in a vocalizing manner from her silver beak, then opens up her deep blue griffin eyes. Before her eyes opened, mirrors shattered all across the atmosphere behind her to make a glittering effect while her deep blue griffin eyes glowed. Mirror Griffin. Bobby told Vinny and Noyer to hold their hands out, enchanted them, then made lightning strikes come from above and stay striking the palm of their hands. Without them feeling any damage, she told them to keep their eyes forward. They did just that, as she stood up, then disappeared like flashes of lightning, all in front of them as her body kept getting more white to prepare for her transformation. Then the room was filled with cloudy mist as she came walking forward in a gleaming white silhouette that will remind you of Razia of the Magus sisters. Yet it appeared her antennae were much longer and provided white flames at the tip of them. When the white transformation energy burst, the cloud mist vaporized as the white flames turned orange, and so did the shells of the firefly's skin. Then her completely transparent wings materialized beautifully to a light orange as they reached out to be 10 feet in wingspan, with 2 smaller sets underneath them. As the lightning disappears from the kids' palms, Bobby blinks her firefly end with lightning several times. Weathering Firefly. Bunny was up last for Good Girl. Before turning on her white transformation energy, she embodied her entire vessel in flames, then became them as her hair gloriously flowed throughout the air. She jumped from in front of the kids into several back flips, then landed on her feet, followed by the white transformation energy. Her flame vessel slowly formed into a bunny hybrid silhouette that still appeared as if it was on fire with her tail burning in the biggest flame. Bunny began to spin slow as she ascended per how much heat she was using, then made a huge white fire explosion that launched her into the air. She landed back on her feet, then the white transformation energy disappeared as there was no hair, just 2 giant bunny ears on fire as her entire vessel was still on fire with her deep red giant bunny eyes. Then said yeah as she started hopping around. She didn't enchant the kids before she transformed. The entire period of her slowly transforming had the vicinity of that dream mad scorching, right before she absorbed all of the heat and snapped the transformation as well as the fire away. Brutal burning bunny. Jenny came prancing from behind the kids, knelt down and raised her left hand to swipe it in front of them, asked them to choose one of the 7 rainbow colors. Vinny chose orange and Noyer chose purple. That's what their range of vision became. Tinted visuals of those colors as she spun quickly in place, then spun in a circle like a top, back to her place, then spun backwards as an entire rainbow arched over her body, turning completely into a white sphere of energy had her looking anything but human. It was followed by a rainbow shockwave, taking the white energy away as she floated in place with giant wings that still had her looking like a ball. The wings began to unfold, revealing zigzag phoenix feathers. To Vinny, she appeared orange, and to Noyer she appeared purple, when in reality, her feathers are all white unless she decides to change the color of them on her own. Any way she decides, the colors will give her the elemental status in which they are, but if her entire feather scheme is multiple or colors of the rainbow, she means to be ultimate. Her mighty wingspan was 30 feet as she swayed her arms, flapped her four wings elegantly in two waves that had her looking like everything but a phoenix, more so a terraform with the way they were making waves. Rainbow Phoenix. Jisoo kneeled in front of them and asked for their hands. Once they were enchanted, they could see that their entire bodies turned into ghost energy. As white as the nullifying void can appear, they watched Jisoo walk 15 steps as her body became more white and completely imbued when she stopped in place. To not scare the kids, she won't use horror visuals that are the best kind when it comes to ghost powers. Instead, she used several black huge hands to come out of nowhere as they grabbed her body, and once she was covered in them, they slid away to reveal nothing. Giant ladybug eyes appeared where she was, then her body started to materialize to their side of range again, in the form that will remind you of Razia again, but with shells that had a great ladybug pattern on them, black dots and a white background. Her antennae were long, but not that visible, but the bright two lights in front of her indicated that that's where they end. Her back shell was round, like a ladybug, to purposely allow her to turtle defend herself if need be. Those shells folded into each other to make 5 layers, so her wingspan of 10 feet can spread and flap for the kids. Afterlife Ladybug. Lalisa came from behind them holding munitions parallel to the gunpowder power that's best classified as everything of Einhander. She released them. They floated. They began to orbit her as she backflipped into several flips to land on her feet, while the munitions stayed with her. She harnesses the white transformation energy, while several shells of metal encompass her vessel. After the metal melts and makes a pool around her feet, it rises violently in a spiral and disappears from their range of sight eventually. When the kids look back down, Lalisa is an entire dragon hybrid with a wingspan of 30 feet and a tail that's 10 feet. Dragon scales are deep green with a lighter green underbelly. Her eyes are brilliant pink, and the smoke coming from her nose is pink as well. As the kids marvel at her hybrid form, they notice that her right hand is actually a gun arm that can transform to fit all of the munitions that are no longer orbiting her. Lastly, her tail ornament appears to be a golden hexagonal spike. Gunpowder Dragon. Then there's Rosé, ready to close the show. An orange rose for Vinny and a purple rose for Noyer. She tells them to hold them carefully and prick their fingers intentionally when she turns around and bows. When she walks away from the kids, trails of pretty metal-like vegetation grow in those footsteps. So incredible that the energy they possess summons fireflies. By the time she gets 15 steps away, there's basically an enchanted forest in the area. Before she turns around, the white transformation energy envelops her. Then she turns to bow. All of the vegetation shakes horribly, then evaporates in energy form as the white energy does as well. Rosé is now a pink echidna, one that resembles Tikal of Sonic Adventure. With longer dreads that linger down to her knees, she looks incredibly deadly, while her hands have gotten marginally larger with the matching knuckles. When she lifted her head, the kids started to float in light aroma of the roses that were given, then floated to her while her fingers gestured them to come to her. When they were orbiting her, she spun around like Kasumi's flower petal taunt from Dead or Alive, but the flower petals stayed coming as she looked up to the kids who were spiraling up into the sky. Vegetation Echidna. Then the 10 of them came out of dreamland as they all rose up at the same time to the aroma of breakfast. Then Noyer says, "I never wanted to wake up." With a smile so innocent, the ladies knew that no matter what today held, they were going to protect these kids and have this curse lifted. Within the hour of them waking up, the 13 of them were at the northwestern Bodino with the 13 knights. Bruno, Leandro, Hexa, Roxy, and Deluva. Everyone had their weapons out as the 6 wizards protected the cart with an enchant, then performed a protection spell on themselves so they could stay anywhere around or in between the cursed people. On the way up, they were telling everyone that if they get split up, to follow the 5 of them or Ramono. Everyone nodded as Terrence was at the ground entrance with Shira sitting perfectly in her new favorite spot of his left arm. Zoldu and Rakama were right there with him, just admiring their daughter, making her laugh by tickling and talking to her. When the cart was about to dock at the top, they walked to the island entrance with the rest of the knights and took out those flame swords again. The 13 knights centered the tips of their swords, then the cart filled with fire, to the point it was flaming out to consume not only the cart, but the entire chain. As soon as those doors opened, the 13 knights ran out with the flames from the swords extending to match the rage they embodied for ultimate output. One by one, the wizards came out, then a circle came running behind them, hastily to end this mess. Cue the music, Final Fantasy, Advent Children's, Divinity, 1 and 2. As the castle doors open to accept the king and everyone else, the 2 kids are in between Good Girl and Blackpink, running in straight lines with Terrence, Shira, and Ramono behind them. Everyone else are scattered as they keep up the sprints until they get to the end of the first hallway. Here is where things get tricky, because there's no straight way to the long throne room. Symmetrical without a doubt, the 5 heads of the Wonderfuls say screw the plan they had with running up and down the corridors to get to the back of the castle, because so many foes have just jumped out from behind structures and furniture to provoke the separation. Because they are witch hunters, magic won't be used a lot in this fight, but doesn't mean they can't use it for discombobulating purposes. Different concentrated spells allow for them to push them back, at least, so they can reevaluate openings, making the entire main hall look nothing short of several matches of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Blast Blue, Cross Tag, and Dead or Alive. It was beyond beautiful as the ladies protected Vinny and Noyer, with Terrence walking around carefully to dodge attacks from weapons that can harm gods while protecting Shira. Something no one but the Wonderfuls know led them to clearing that whole first room out. Ramono started whispering, but everyone could hear him clear as day. The pillars holding up the structure of the main hall broke loose to start swinging in massive waves, either knocking foes out with hitting them directly in their heads, flattening them, or launching them at high speeds to walls, other structures, or out of the first room. Roxy and Aluva wasn't pleased with the decision, because they know they'll be in charge of having to repair the castle when all of this is done. They were seen at the right staircase with their weapons in their hands on their hips moved to either side, and their faces all mean. After all of the foes became motionless, they hurried up the spiral stairs as more came out of the miniature hallways of the direction they planned on going. Running for their lives while taking another route to the long throne room had their sprints unmet by more ambushes. Then they all ran onto a balcony full of more Sayal-vet soldiers, from filling magazines with bullets to getting chin-checked by Bruno, Leandro, and Hexa. Several of them didn't have time to properly react as everyone went for consciousness. They were on one of the west balconies making a beautiful view, a dangerous view. The kids saw all of the New Day heroes in true combat form as the knights were moving in perfect circles, very close by to one another, as they ducked, stood still, and jumped so their comrades' attacks hit the foes. Their many years of sparring with one another made it beyond beautiful as they spun in a circle so smoothly, while picking up foes and tossing them off of the balcony. Terrence looked at Ramono, then got his attention so he could say, "Can I borrow them when all of this was over?" In all seriousness, if you need a hit squad, those 13 would be it. After this ambush unit was taken care of, there wasn't enough anti-magic going around to decrease their onslaught. Bruno said that they could have an ambush unit on the other balcony. Leandro and Hexa nodded their heads, and all 3 of them disappeared to ambush them on the east balcony, then came back after they made the trapdoors over there, swallow all 24 of them, so that the entirety of them can sprint more to the long throne room. Re-entering the castle had them sprinting through different rooms, then ending up on the balcony behind the long throne room. All of them stood beside each other, then walked towards the balcony, where the rest of the enemies were standing down in a room, weapons drawn and ready for them. As everyone's and the kids' eyes cleared the balcony to look down, all of the foes screamed to mightily sprint, then jump up as the knights, wizards, Good Girl, Blackpink, and Ramono all jumped down to meet them in the air with enough power. They had Terrence saying, "Oh, shit!" There was so much might to witness, as the clash had the good guys using the bad guys as stepping stones to adjust their vessels so they wouldn't get stabbed, slashed, or ended, to instead doing all of the stabbing, slashing, and ending with spirit weapons, to flame swords, to spells, to uppercuts, to eyeball gauging, to using long banners, to wrapping up foes, to using near defeats as means of counterattacks, had Terrence almost losing focus on his surroundings. Two of their biggest men and women showed up on the balcony to take the easiest of the circle, so they could spread the plague. Not if Terrence has the will to do the opposite. He gave Shira to the kids, told them to stay right there, then put a barrier on the three of them, like it was lying about his reserve powers last night. With 4 being his lucky number, he did nothing but lay down his rainbow double sword to crack his knuckles, shrugged, then went for life meters. Firstly, by moving at the speed of everything so he could remove their hoods and take their mask off just so he could see their faces. That didn't bemuse them as he thought it would, but it gave him everything he needed. He started to shout obscenities about their appearances just to make the kids laugh, talking about, "How your mama let you out like this? And how your daddy let you out like this? Oh, blasphemous, dope fiend, 5 dread remaining head asses. Looking like y'all don't know what the mirror is for. Spell perm for me. She looks like she could use a little MAC lip gloss. Looking like Furbies that only have one functioning eye. Don't he look like a creep on the beach? I think y'all could benefit from a gallon of water. Y'all so damn ugly. I can't do this no more. So damn ugly. I'd rather watch a Jack Nicholson movie. They so damn tore up, right? Y'all gonna make me cry when this fight is over with." Turned around just to make Vinny and Noya laugh more. They approached a turned around Terrence with haste, but was quickly met with knuckle sandwiches that would have him labeled as the top shelf. Carefully laying damage to chins, ribs, kneecaps, elbows, necks, groins, feet, and domes. Size 15 boots to the back of their head never looked so sweet. As the 4 of them met unconscious City, Terrence looked around to make sure the coast was clear before taking away the small barrier around the kids, while the action below was still at full force. As he kneeled down, someone as fast as a guide came up to stab him in the back from behind. Then the long blade broke as soon as it touched the barrier around the kids. Vinny and Noyer shrieked so loudly, everyone downstairs immediately turned around to see the mist of blood in the air from the barrier releasing a force field that knocked Terrence and whoever the foe was back. Everyone jumped from below to get back upstairs as if their ankles are made out of overhead universe lifts. There stood the man who would normally appear as a Brazilian, but whatever happened to him had him with half a dome of black skin that showed black teeth and a solid black eye. The whole right side of his dome is black, while the other half looked completely normal of a super being. It was Sayal Vet's leader, Volder Orleans Abraganja. As everyone was coming down from the arc of their mighty leaps into the air, Ramono said he has been waiting for this, then commanded everyone to get back downstairs. Volder was standing over a god's body as if he has won it all. Terrence rolled over to be laying on his back. He then said, "You're a wuss, and so is your father. I've never seen such weak bullshit by a half and half. Are you a half-breed too? Oh, bitch-ass nigga." He looked back and down at Terrence and said, "I'll finish you off after I handle this false king." Ramono pulled out a spirit weapon he hasn't unsheathed in the past week that had Volder pulling his out too. What Ramono pulled out was the spirit scimitar that has been claiming souls of the old imperial ancestors, and anyone that thinks it's fitting to try to resurrect the Brazilian imperial family. It was a pretty midnight-colored, serrated, dragon-styled sword that appeared to have 1,000,000,000,000 stars swimming around in it while releasing the cloudy exhaust of it all out of the bottom of the handle. The hilt was glowing, while the weapon made a graceful hum that is known worldwide by now. The hum that repeats the words, "Made of circles, be unbroken, by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a battle, home awaiting, in the sky, Lord, in the sky." The two clashed in front of the kid's eyes as Terrence was trying to heal as fast as he could from the surprise attack. Ramono was weaving in and out of what seemed like a direct fight scene from Dynasty Warriors, whipping around his spirit scimitar against Volder's spirit scimitar as if they had been waiting to get at each other's heads their entire lives. Ramono cursed Volder at the age of 13, when he was nothing but a lower-level wizard of the Coven, but still mighty enough to brandish a lifelong curse that would label him as an enemy of the matriarchy. Volder hasn't seen his real face since that horrible day of trying to kill Ramono, and somehow still seems like he can't kill him. Failed plan after failed plan of taking New Brazil back was not going to happen today, as he was chipping away at Ramono's life better than Ramono could. All because of the weakening effect of the curse, but Ramono wasn't going to let this end easily. As the two of them were gathering winds to continue to fight, one by one, Good Girl came up to the balcony with Blackpink, followed by the wizards, then the knights after they made sure every soldier below was dead. There Volder stood, trying his damnedest to land the death blow that would finally take King the Silver out. Everyone kept trying to step into the battle to ensure the king's survival, but Ramono kept stopping them. Yelling too hard to keep his survival tactics right was weakening him for sure. In a last-ditch effort to get the best of Volder, he slid forward while leaning back and whipping his scimitar in a circular motion, with a dainty lizard being summoned, then tossed at him. Lizards are Volder's weakness. As he stood there in utter fear with a lizard coming to his face, he dropped his guard, then rose his sword to stab Ramono right where he was exposing himself. But Terrence wasn't about to let that happen. Terrence finally used the last bit of god abilities he had to change the make of that lizard to a bigger one that crawled all the way back up to Volder's face and looked him directly in his eyes. Ramono severed Volder in half as Terrence lifelessly flopped to the ground. Panicking, everyone went to him to try to heal him with spells or potions. Without him responding and losing consciousness, the kids were free to see everyone scoop them up, went back downstairs to the entrance of the room so that Ramono could activate the slide that would take them spiraling down into the castle's catacombs to get to the inner sanctum. As soon as Ramono opened the trap door, everyone felt a rumble as more soldiers came running in and jumped down the slide with them. They just won't let up. Ramono was the last one that jumped down, but he kept yelling at everyone to release their energy so he can absorb it to release a blast that would travel up the slide and hopefully incapacitate all of them through all of their anti-magic clothing. Rose said that wasn't necessary. She still had her spirit blaster out from earlier and took up the role of absorbing everyone's energy, then made her way to the back of the pack. Rose closed her eyes, then reality kept blinking and getting dim as she forced her spirit weapon to make an energy bomb sure to stop them from sliding down. Rose asked if it was okay to damage the castle any further. Roxy and Aluva said go for it, begrudgingly. Then the shockwave had them all free from being pursued as the wizards forced the rubble to melt in place and not avalanche downwards after them. At the end of the slide, they carried Terrence into the inner sanctum, where more of the humming from Ramono's spirit scimitar commenced. As fast as he could, he was trying to get everyone of the circle to the right position so he could get the curse reversed and Terrence could live on. He was feeling his life force die in front of his eyes as the wizards and knights hummed right along with the song in the atmosphere. In a sanctum that glowed yellow and pink, they summoned the ancestors of the Wonderful's Coven to break this cursed curse. One by one, starting with the center position, then to the one position, everyone felt the curse lift from the vessel as the gray film over their eyes disappeared too. They could see in true color vision again. Finally, as the relief of the ladies, kids, and Ramono was felt in a remarkable way, then there was Terrence, just laying there still, in all of his godliness, still unconscious, still not emitting life force, just laying there as if he was going to be everyone's first time seeing a dead god. Ramono eventually kneeled over his lifeless body. Resurrection doesn't normally work on gods, but Ramono grabbed one of his hands and just looked at him for a while, then closed his eyes. Terrence's heart didn't beat again. No pulse of life, no matter how much energy Ramono poured into him. Then Ramono opened his eyes to what looked like Terrence beginning to evaporate from where he laid. That was odd to everyone there because even when gods die, their bodies just remain. Tears began to roll down faces, rolling and rolling as all of the calamity that happened since day one was being reversed. The explosion from earlier was being cleared as the bodies of Sayal Vet were being teleported to a mass grave site of their people. The individuals sliced up in the Black Jungle were being teleported to the mass grave site of their people as well. The dead at Hotel Noyer couldn't be resurrected, as the 6 wizards felt all of this. Ramono's anguish was building as he tried his damnedest to not succumb to his emotions. When the final spike hit his heart, the energy he said he was going to release as a signal for the dragons exploded and could be seen at the bottom of the island in the sky. Then the hundreds of dragons on standby all left their hiding places to blow everything but kisses into the wind. Giant fireballs flew from so many directions with precision to the inner sanctum that it all appeared a dream. One by one, the fireballs were making the inner sanctum glow immensely as everything within eventually went to white. The entire island in the sky was imbued in flames.